Whoa.
Perfect.
Holy cow. That was insane. The timer went off at the exact same time that those 4 songs or 5 songs.
Hello. Today we are dancing with Zoë Poluch. We met when I started my MA here.
When was that?
That was 2012, 11. So about 10 years ago. No, 12 years ago I started, and then I know, time flies. We did body double together with Turkey.
That's true.
And I was somehow involved in Tour de Dance, which is also an Anna Efronsson project, which you were the first and maybe last.
The first and last, yes.
But hopefully it continues. It was such a great idea, touring Sweden somehow. Okay, and you're an amazing dancer. You also work here with me at Stockholm University of the Arts. I'm always honored to have you in my vicinity, even though we rarely work extremely close. I think just knowing your ideas are something the students and my colleagues are bouncing off of makes me feel sort of more secure in the work I have to do. So I'm really glad that we get this opportunity to dance together, even though we have danced here and there. We did things at MDT. What was that called? Where it was a thing for dancers to meet and just hang out.
Yeah. Oh my god. Not Maximum Spaces. That was that other thing. Oh, what was that?
It was something in Swedish.
Not workshop. After work. Nej.
Ja, precis.
With Rebecca.
Tillsammans? No. No.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, there was a few times that we would meet up and share practices.
Yeah.
Right?
And I vividly remember you asking me about anarchism and me feeling flustered and I wish I had answered that in a different way. And it's one of those memories that still repeats on me.
Oh, no.
So maybe one day I will answer it better. But
maybe the whole point with anarchism is not being able to have an infallible answer.
But if people don't know you, and what do you tell them?
Well, hi, Peter.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me. This is so exciting to be in the studio. I can describe that it's an absolutely glorious, sunny, beautiful day. You can hear the birds. The windows are wide open to let in the sun and the pollen and the beautiful blue sky.
And the sound a little bit.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. And I come here, the proposal is that I come here as myself and not my working role, which is so interesting because that's, it's not maybe that interesting to other people, but for me it's a constant hiccup or dilemma, because actually I would say that now the work with the BA program is kind of all of my efforts and engagements and attentions go to it. So I think everything through that, and I think that's been also a meaningful process of deflection, of not having to deal with all this other. I'm looking, by the way, at a piece of paper where Peter has made a beautiful resume of me. And I like that you put the dots over the O and the E and the Z. I think my name should just have dots everywhere. I'm like polka dot.
Yeah.
She's one of those polka dot people.
Sorry, dot.
Yeah. Me. So who cares? It's not so interesting. Maybe do I do a bio thing? Do I say how I got here? You can if you want.
Yeah.
I moved here in 2010, which is very many lifetimes ago. It feels like now. To study the MA in choreography, same that you did, but under a different director. And I was living in Brussels at the time and quite happily working with choreographers, mostly Thomas Hauert. But really doing that dance sleeve in Brussels, where you are on tour a lot and you take class every day and you are involved in processes and you go to Kai Theater and it was super rich and amazing. And I thought I was only coming to Stockholm for 2 years to do this program, and then I would go back. And then I kind of got stuck, or not stuck. I got magnetized, or I loved it. I arrived and something happened and it felt really right, and so I ended up staying.
I mean, you've been a momental part of what made for me what made Stockholm a very vibrant place to be.
I mean, there was this like sort of afterglow of the MA program that me and a lot of other colleagues, like for example, I see in your list Samlingen, these great people that I met during the education, or sort of alongside the education, Nadja and Stina and Halla and Amanda that we continue to work with. So that, like, there was this afterglow, and now I'm trying to understand where the glow is. I'm not like feeling the glow in my own, but I think it's also me. I think you, in a way, maybe you have to be, it makes me like a glow or an echo or a shadow, like maybe you need to be somewhere in order to experience the repercussion of that somewhere. So if I think of a shadow, or like I think when you throw the stone into the ocean and it does the ripples. So I don't really know where I am. So, and I don't know where the art is. So I don't think I'm then so, sensitive to that glow.
But this feels like something that's always been with you. You've always been in sort of doubt of what your practice is, where it is, what it should be. Because I remember us talking about, and this is also something I wanted to bring up, was that you have a radio practice, or with Nadja maybe, in more one way or another. And then you also had this desire to make a radio show for your house. And it's always somehow like escaping or challenging, like where does your practice situate itself, and so on. I mean, and I felt really inspired. Sorry, that's why I wanted to bring up the radio. Was that this is extremely inspired by your radio practices.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I was reflecting the other day about this radio project that I tried to basically make a really micro-local radio station in the 9-story apartment building that I lived in a närförort, a close suburb of Stockholm called Bagarmossen. This was like 2015, I think I started getting the idea. And because I was so alarmed or so surprised by the lack of contact with people that you shared such intimate space, like geographical space with, like wall to wall, upstairs, downstairs, just also the little teeny elevators that you'd have to travel with. And so I went knocking on everybody's door and tried to rally them to join my radio station and have a radio program, and nobody opened. A few people, I think there were like 54 apartment buildings. I got invited into 2. Many didn't open. A lot of like opening like a crack and then saying like, who the hell are you? Because also this thing of like getting access to a building without code, without the calling the person to buzz you in is like impossible. And to then have spontaneous visitors knocking on your door never happens. So I was really crossing over some boundaries there. And so anyway, that's a whole other radio conversation, a whole other episode, because it went on. I tried so many different. In the end, it became like a local newspaper that we wrote together with the people that wanted to engage and sent and like left in everybody's mailboxes. And I learned Swedish. That was also, I would say, one large impetus for me to learn Swedish, because when I went knocking around, I realized that I really needed to be able to be in conversation with these people that I was trying to engage. So that was a big push for me to do that. That was a really meaningful consequence of that whole comical thing. Oh my God, the like awkwardness, trying to just, so awkward. Anyways. But yeah, the latest, I mean, I guess, so now, I think I recently wrote an application to KUR that was, of course, said no to.
Like everyone.
A touring grant for the Radio 3. And I think I had to like describe my activity or something. And I think I said something about like, my new motto is long and slow. Or something like that. Maybe it sounded a bit sneaky when I said it or wrote it down. But this thing of just being able, because I don't have the capacity, I don't have the time to attend to a million simultaneous projects, but that to just let, like, sometimes I've been touring Radio 3 since 2019. And I don't know if it's certainly something that could be improved, and it's I don't really know what it is anymore, because we gather and we do it and we have a really good time.
And maybe to say Radio 3 isn't a radio show. It's really a performance.
It's an hour-long, like, formal front, costume changes, dance performance, and concert.
I really recommend people to watch it if they get the opportunity.
So it's like... so it's so old, and it's a little bit like that solo that I made for graduation in 2010 called
Yeah, I thought I should
Was it
look
called
that
Whatever? I've had this, I mean, Whatever, oh my god. Yes, there we go. As if whatever, so what. I really was playing with a certain, what's the word? Quality of language. Let's see.
Ambiguity.
Oh my goodness, I'm having a total brain fog moment. But anyways, that solo, I like kept on doing it. And at a certain point, I was like, oh my goodness, but it's so irrelevant. Why? I shouldn't do it anymore. It's not interesting. It doesn't fall in the right moment. It's not contemporary. I put those in air quotes, etc. And I think in a way, I could have insisted to do it because there's this like certain point where either something is passé, but then when you start to insist on repeating it, that it's also a container to hold something that is meaningful or like in resonance with something that's happening in the current moment. And with Radio 3, I'm starting to think to maybe be more insisting because the solo, I can't insist on things in solo. I'm not good at that. But with Radio 3, it's like a commitment to a project, but also in certain ideas and I would say a political conviction, land back. But it's also a commitment to these people, Elisa and Hanako, who are working in, Elisa lives in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Hanako lives in Montreal. Canada, so-called Canada. And so in a way, it's like, okay, so if I get the chance to work with them continuously, and okay, because we've been trying to like, should we make something new? But it's like total mind-boggling. I don't understand the geographic conditions of that. I can't. Maybe I should ask you how to do like an avatar thing. You know, the climate, you know, flyg, skam, allt det där. It's like how to make this happen. It just feels too complicated. So we have this process of then gathering to perform it once in a while. And in that moment of gathering, a lot of things happen. And it's, I sort of heard myself say to the other day, like, but maybe we don't need to make something new. Maybe we just do this for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And how does that change? And it's a mediocre container maybe, you know, maybe this like, but the container will also shift according to who is seeing it when and where. So blah, blah, blah. Anyway.
But maybe dance is a mediocre container. I mean, I think there's something in your work which maybe speaks to that as well. We're already doing the reflective part.
Oh, are we? Okay, yeah.
You know,
so
in a way.
Oh, yes, but
it's
exactly. So we go on to the next dramaturgy. I also once the one review I ever got in DN for the solo said that I had a terrible sense of dramaturgy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Orion Abrahamsson eller Andersson. Nej, Abrahamsson. Isn't Andersson the choreographer?
Yes, that's right.
Exactly.
Sorry,
You know, sviktande eller sviktande. I think. Okay. Oh, it's always those words I confuse. And sviktande känsla for dramaturgy, something like that. And you know, in a way, I thought his reviews were. I never really agreed with them, so I thought it was a compliment. But it is. I think that easily the sense of dramaturgy could be read as but it's a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm going to now say what I'm going to do.
Yes.
And the funny thing is I missed that part of our communication that I was like, I just cycled here this morning and I was like, I'm going to get to go to the studio and Peter's going to tell me what to do. I'm so excited when someone tells me what to do. I'm so happy when someone tells me what to do. And then you say that I'm going to tell you what to do. And that's great because I will just do what I always do. Because I don't get to do it very much. And I would propose that we put on some music. Are we allowed to use music?
Yes.
I have this great playlist. I think it's great. No, let me think here. Okay, so what I was thinking of like non-instrumental dancing. Like dancing, but it's like so doing... How long can you do things like this? But okay. Basically dancing for the sake of dancing. So it's absolutely not for the sake of anything else. It's not for the sake of training, for exercising, for improving, for exploring, for investigating. It's really just dancing for the sake of dancing. And so I do say just dancing. And just is in air quotations. Because it's an impossible task. It's a... I don't know if it's a paradox, but it's a conundrum.
Yeah.
So that we could put on the timer for 20 minutes and do just dancing. So non-instrumental. And I think I can say that, like, I don't feel like... So in the beginning, this thing of... I developed this... We won't go into the whole score, but I did develop a score that I've been kind of not letting go of with Stina Nyberg, like 10 or 12 years ago now, called Dancing Is. But... Dancing is ... But it includes some just dancing, and so the just dancing is both very much part of that work with Stina, and also we're super influenced by a lot of improvising that I did many years before with someone named Martin Kilvady. But I would say like this commitment to the non-instrumental was kind of a frustration with everything having to always be for the sake of something else.
Yeah. And
wanting to practically, physically, like, you know, as we say, the Mody bind, as Eleanor Bauer says, the Mody bind, totally 100% immerse into this like what happens if for 20 minutes we just do something for itself and not for something else. And then in the last couple of years I've been thinking maybe we're in a new moment and maybe we actually should be really decided and specific about what sort of consequences and effects we want the things we do to have.
Right.
And I think that's like on a political plane, but that's also somehow related to the dancing. So I don't have an answer about that, you know, because I'm not sure, like, could we dance for a ceasefire?
Yeah.
Could we dance for demilitarization? And I'm not really sure if in a 20-minute practice, I don't know if that's like a prayer or a invocation or a commitment. I'm not sure. Or like some sort of telepathic energy. I don't. It sounds also so feeble and pathetic and useless. But
Paloma Madrid has been saying often recently, because of the conflicts, because of the desire for ceasefire, and because of the changes in the cultural politics in Sweden, or in general, towards creative forms, that maybe just dancing now is actually a political statement to continue to persist that we should be allowed to dance and that it should not be erased through culture funding cuts and everything else. But I see that your questions may be a little bit more bigger or pointed, but it's just interesting that you have this thing of just dance.
Dancing, the verb is really important.
Yes, that's
true. And I'm
true.
also so like, oh my God, I know,
so
seriously, but I mean, like, I'm getting like a, what's that word, when you like vomit in your mouth, like, but it's closed. No. Like, oh, it's like I'm a cliche of myself because I've heard myself say these things so many times. But anyways.
No, but dancing.
Dancing.
But just dancing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Just dancing. I mean, also interesting if you think now of the word just, like related to justice.
Yes.
I haven't really thought about that before.
Yeah.
Like that, what would be a
fair dance, a just dance. Yeah.
And is that and then maybe that's the turn. Or the refocusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because also there's I mean, and we met around Me Too as well. This happened during our relationship in Stockholm and with Stockholm and dance. And I think we could easily say that dance has lots of work to do on an ethical plane. And so maybe just dancing is also in relationship to that. And I wonder, I think it's very much this question, isn't it? That, because often the counter-argument to including certain ethical codes within our art practices is that, but we should be allowed to do whatever we want, regardless of consequence. And perhaps that's not the case. And perhaps to actually be able to dance freely, one actually has to be able to dance ethically. What kind of dance imposes on someone else's liberty and freedom? Can that ever be a free dance? Even for the individual feeling that they have to sexually abuse or coerce people into such situations. Like,
I mean, that is interesting because when I hold space for this practice for other people to do, I'm always like a bit like, oh shit, I forgot. When they start touching each other, I say, oh shit, I forgot to say that it's kind of your own dance. Because there is something that becomes, there's like a relationship that happens when people start touching each other that is no longer about just It's very much about will and initiative taking and pulling and coercing and initiating and leading and following.
Yeah, and obeying as well. Yeah.
And but maybe that is the next step. It's like just dancing, but you're always in contact with someone and trying to find that like, oh my God, is that what we're supposed to do now? But I also get like, oh no, okay, because maybe that's what we're supposed to do now. No, next time. Because I'm also. It's so much. It is so much knowledge to be dancing in contact with someone. I noticed that, and then during the pandemic, I noticed that knowledge just evaporated because you couldn't be in contact anymore. Or students, I see that from the student perspective. That that there is so much information, so much knowing that can come out of being in physical relation. That is not happening. That's a whole other conversation as well, but. Thinking a little bit how there are new boundaries for making that possible in educational situations.
But definitely, to go back, like if it was in touch, if it was in contact, the thing of non-instrumentalization, that would be a huge question. Yeah. How are you not instrumentalizing that situation and allowing
exactly. If I push your knee, how am I not doing that in order for it to move in that direction or to pull me from the floor?
Huge
That's
questions.
Anarchy, isn't
Maybe.
No, I don't know. But there is one thing that I wanted to say there. There was something. It's a little bit this thing of like just dancing. It's like a more. I'm trying to understand it also in what is gate kept out and what is allowed to be in just dancing. And thinking a little bit about this, like modernity's obsession with critique and separation and categorization, hierarchies. That's like the project of modernity, which is the result of 500 years of colonization. That is also something I feel like actively. Which then it's like to then get away from dichotomous thinking. So that's not necessarily then that doesn't mean that. To throw away critique and to throw away putting some things here and some things there, making separation. But there's something to be. I wonder in this just dancing because it's sort of like this. It's everything and anything, which I feel like I work a lot with practices that are very ambiguous in that way. So the defining, the kind of precising. I wish that was a verb, and defining is really much up to the doer, which is a challenging work. I think it demands a kind of experience and observation. It's like it's a fine line between whatever and something.
Yeah.
And I think this maybe that in the practicing to understand kind of modernity's hold on decision making, on the inner voice. Yeah, I think that can be kind of meaningful because we're totally stuck in a bind.
Yeah.
And I would say the so-called contemporary dance field and the production of this market.
If we're not careful, we'll have nothing to say after. So we will do 20 minutes,
no, we'll
just dancing, no instrumentalization, and we will come back and speak to you after more.
Totally sweaty and so euphoric.
Oh, whoa. Perfect.
Holy cow. That was insane. There's a timer went off at the exact same time that those 4 songs or 5 songs.
Okay, we're back. Wow, what a dance.
It was fun.
Or what dancing? Maybe I should say.
Yeah, I mean, then maybe it's in the post.
Then it can become a dance.
Maybe, I don't know. That's a whoo. Yeah.
This was fantastic. Sorry. Just such freedom, so much space to think as well through dancing. The mind, body, the Mody. Is it the
Mody bind?
Mody bind. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, beautiful. How was it for you?
Fantastic. I mean, it's both the initial thing of like, oh, I have a body.
Yeah.
Because I don't. I'm pretty much a bureaucrat now, so that thing of, and then exploring the body as a 45-year-old, that's not in deep physical practice. So it's like the, oh my god, I can't even go in. It's so many levels. But it is first this thing of, and I don't know if it's like a physiological thing, but like the breath and the endorphins and the chemicals and the stirring up and the loud music and the just doing whatever the fuck I want, non-instrumentally. Forgetting the task, finding myself when I do something for the sake of something else. I see you do something, I copy you.
Yeah.
All those they're like tics or like something that also are so conditioned. We've practiced those so much, and I would say also with the work of Thomas Hauert, all this improvisation work in the toolbox, it's so much. It was such a deep conditioning the body towards sensitivity to respond, to react, to be in relation, to copy, to mirror, to like all these. So like this kind of like extra limb, which is like the attention to the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's like something that maybe this practice gave me some sort of freedom from, to be just like, and because I'm thinking a lot about like why not be in physical relation? You know, why did that just? Also because I don't think I didn't feel like I had the skills, because I didn't turn into like a contact jam, and I didn't know what that would bring up. But I think there's also something deeper in that I think the physical relation and anyway.
But what are you saying? You're saying that you are avoiding that limb, those tools of like composition.
Yeah, I mean.
But at the same time, sort of allowing them, like, or you're seeing when they come up and then dealing with them.
Exactly. Maybe. I mean, I guess the score would be like to insist on the just, so to not go further on those.
Okay. With things. Like a compositional tool.
Exactly. Because that would be instrumental. That's like in order to be in a specific relationship to you or the space or the room or the music. Yeah. So to try to like, but I mean, it could also be like you sit on the pillow in some sort of meditation sitting practice. Right. The thought happens, you think it goes by. Yeah. So, you know, I could have like the instinct there, I observe it, I follow it as much as I want, and I let it go. But what I do observe is a instinct or reflex towards speed. And I've been thinking a lot about how probably I should insist on doing this practice really slowly, because I think other insights would arrive. I think the speed thing for me is actually a kind of smokescreen. I think it's actually a way of kind of, it's like the athletic, sweaty, the getting into the music and the sort of joy of that, for sure. But I think also speed is kind of used as in the rushing. I think it's, if I may get a little bit more personal about it, a kind of deflection of intimacy. I think the speed actually pushes away intimacy and certain relationships and relating. Also, you know,
so there's one can lose control a little bit more maybe with speed, like the time just for choosing is like less maybe more instinctual perhaps than if you were working really slow, right? But there's a sense like with the speed, perhaps, like I have to think of, there's in the introduction to Exhausting Dance by André Lepecki, he speaks about a movement, like a change in the reading of dance as an art form, and I forget by who. It's not Marco Barco, or anyway, it's one of these dance historians, and they started
the Franco guy.
I don't think it is Franco,
okay.
But anyway. They're in the introduction for sure. But someone suggested that dance as an art form is movement, like that's its material, so to speak. And Lepecki sort of wants to move on from there and say, okay, but then how do we include these big pauses and the stillness that is being used in choreography? How can you say that it's movement per se? And this person even went as far as to argue that ballet wasn't actually pure dance because there was so much more than just movement. And you can kind of see in that modernist turn how movement became like a sort of staple of dance performance, right? And in here, I feel like there's a questioning around it. Like, you're putting us right into movement so that we can maybe deal with what is the artwork in there. I had to think about intention a lot. So like, because I was trying not to have the dance instrumentalized, and I'm passing through things that it's not like I've been instrumentalized really, like I'm in conversation with it, but I'm having then to ask, like, when that teacher or that person was sort of programming my body to function in those ways, and with my consent as well, like I'm in dialogue with it, right? But what was the intention behind that? Because so much of my education, the intention was hidden and not exposed. Like, why we have to practice the English style of ballet where the arm is more curved, for instance, compared to the Russian, say, which is more straight, but not really explaining where that aesthetic came from and why, what its intention was, what it does. And I'm sure there are answers out there.
Totally. Have you written back to your ballet teacher?
No.
Some sort of little pen pal exchange.
Yeah. I think I was already questioning them enough at the time that they probably respond. I would be at the bar and my ballet teacher comes by and says, "This isn't one of your performances, Peter."
Yeah. Okay, wow.
And that was my note for the class, sort of thing. So by the end of my ballet education,
Yeah, no, it's hard for me not to go into talking about education now, because I think that is like the first step in a long process of change or trying to transform something, is this thing of being explicit with those intentions, and maybe that's not that having to change it all at once, but to explicitly state the motivations for certain choices. Yeah. And I feel like teachers are really much better at that now than I actually ask them when they come and teach to situate something about like their their proposal.
But it's really hard. Like, I mean, even if you asked me to do that, I don't think I'd be fully aware of where all my intentions are coming from. And I feel like this practice, at least in the doing it now, it made me to start to have to reckon with, like, when I just want to be dancing, dancing, like, are those intentions instrumentalizing this practice? And in what way? Like, and how do you relate to the histories that come up and stuff? I think that's sort of in my question. Yeah. In relation to the practice, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, the histories. It's like the body is just some big kaleidoscope of different programmings. I forgot that word. So that's a good one. So yeah, and I would say I'm also partly amnesiac. So I think that I'm not necessarily dwelling on the genealogy of all of those kaleidoscopic shimmerings, but I would say actually it's like, in a way, the body is just kind of on this like automatic, like I'm thinking of the relation to automatic writing, for example.
Right. Yeah.
And it's the mind that is really like, and that's why I don't want to speak in those terms, but I'm going to, because it's my experience. But the mind is really somehow processing, arriving, and this current moment. I mean, it didn't start from nowhere. You know, we met down at KTH at the encampment to protest against the genocide. Yeah. And then made our way up here to do this. So like, it's all of those impressions, sensations, all this. I mean, it's självklart. It's very self-evident what I say, because I feel like that's what we always bring to the room when we arrive as this material of being dancing that is such a overwhelming container of everything. And then I feel like that with the work of the students, sometimes I have to like actively try to encourage like some sort of distance making between yourself as this so-called instrument and the other perceptions of it, analysis of it, critique of it, feedback of it. This kind of, it gets so extremely
personal.
Yeah, right. And I sometimes I think with envy of the people that have like an instrument that they can just leave at home and then go out and that sort of thing. But it's also a big cliche. But I'm wondering a little bit after doing this, like, what is the difference between like raving or going to the club? And other than like the time of day, the more analytical syfte, analytical purpose or something. Yeah. I should probably do more clubbing. That would be a fun observation, I think. It's also less, I mean, I wouldn't jump around and bring out my pot of beret, Ꭶ횃has selvfølg in the club.
I did sort of clubbing research with Frédéric Gies, of course. But I have to think of, like, there is something similar in the sense of you're there as an individual, but you're there collectively. Like, I feel like that seems really important. And I have to think about in my teaching how usually in the first year we do solos. So everything is focused on your personal expression, your artistry, you and your thing, and it kind of bounds them to identifying feedback and stuff with themselves, which is so tricky because then the next course is collaboration. And I was just speaking like a couple of weeks ago, could it be interesting to go the other way around and start with collaboration, because there you're working on something between you.
Yeah, well, it's this myth that you are only able to contribute to the group once you know where you stand and what you have to offer.
Yeah.
And that isn't that the genius artist and I mean, they don't even work with groups, but I think that would be a fun experiment.
Yeah.
To just see what sort of consequences that has.
And I think that's interesting in here that we're sort of having to deal with our self-view on ourselves, but whilst being in a very actually caring collective space where everyone is trying to do that and sort of supporting one another. Like there's a real collaborative vibe there. I want it because it's also not authentic movement. No. Right? Authentic movement is this practice where you're meant to move authentically with your eyes closed
with
and
witness.
And
I think the witness is really important in
exactly.
Movement.
Yeah, that's true. But still, like that element of trying to empty out and allow whatever movement comes. It's not that. So it is relating to a history of dancing and where that is today. Like you say, like what influences have affected it, and maybe to touch back to the just that we spoke about before, like. How are we able to dance whilst there are genocides happening and other people are sacrificing their day to protest against the thing? And here we are dancing.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Not that we have an answer, right?
No, absolutely not. And I think my latest solace is this thing of reminding myself that it's a lifelong commitment, some sort of process of transformation, and that there are no solutions, and and it does not sit on one person's shoulders, and that every day. I mean, this is I can't even go there. But I think what does happen a little bit is this. Because I get into arguments sometimes with people about this. Like, as if you have to decide that either the one version that you need to be well yourself, like sound taken care of, heard, listened, seen, well, mentally stable, in order to then contribute and live in a collective. Yeah. And then this other thing, which is like, but the kind of the backside of that, of this kind of total preoccupation with oneself, and that it never moves out of that preoccupation. And I'm wondering a little bit about those resources, how you can distribute, reconfigure, recompose those resources and attentions. So, like, maybe this sweating and dancing with you and being able to think for a moment about these things that, in fact, every time I say a word now, I'm aware of this recording and the kind of ineffability, is that the word? It's that the kind of...
The permanence, basically.
Yeah, and also like the patheticness of these words to describe it. It all sounds really flat and stupid, and it's so much more than what I just said. So... wondering about if I can commit to this thing, would then my resources have longer lasting consequences in the collective, for example. Blah 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 blah. Oh my God.
No, I mean, there's a sense of like we're up against a lot of like difficulties. Like there's a struggle. Like I don't really understand alienation as Marx puts it, but I feel like we are often alienated from one another, and we're often separated somehow from the situation and our own needs, even to the point that we, even when in states of emergency, where we need to come together and we need to find function through mutual aid, we struggle because we're sort of incarcerated by this logic, this system. And I wonder, like at the beginning, and I've heard you say this before, like, oh, I'm repeating myself, I'm doing this practice again, even though you said you don't do the practice often either, but maybe you were speaking more to dancing you do often. And now you're speaking about it's a lifelong project. And so it's a little bit of a
contradiction.
Yeah, contradiction. There's a sense also like you desire change, but you also recognize the slowness of change and the
But I would say
the
that
ground
sort of,
swell.
Yeah, I would say that kind of contradiction is me also dealing with the ideology of modernity that I've been marinated in. So the idea of contemporary air quotes again, dance. This thing that like that you make something new, you produce something new, you critique everything's all this linear time, this progression, this going forward and producing something new that will then be 100 times better than that was there. So this huge hilarious myth. And so I hear when I say that, like, oh, I'm repeating it, like I could also just shut the fuck up and say like, okay, listen to that other voice, Zoe. Because that one is maybe like this thing of, okay, this is like I even wrote, like it's a slow and long commitment with this Radio 3, for example. Like, what if I actually did just say that I just do that piece for the rest of my life? I don't make anything new. Anyway, but yeah.
But there's
some therapy here, Peter.
It's good. Let's
always go there?
we can work it out. No, but I feel like I'm in the same place, and you keep apologizing for speaking so much. And I have a podcast where every time I do it, I'm like, am I repeating myself? Like, is there anything original? Like, I'm also there, just so you know. Like, and also my practice is very similar. Like, I have a practice called do what you like what you do, which is very much about just trying to be in a way. And then I have another practice recently that I've been working on a lot, which has to do with the task is don't dance, but if you start feeling as though you're dancing, do something else. And then you start to play with like what is more or less dance. So like I'm really like in the same sort of wheelhouse of like trying to deal with these ideologies, these senses of conforming and not conforming. And recently I've been so obsessed with how we might have a more complex understanding of choreography. However, a lot of the default way of like thinking about dance is through the lens of set choreography, that the material is set and that's what choreography is, even though we know as practitioners it's more complex than that. I think that's where the birth of score comes from, which is neither set nor improvisation. It's somewhere between, and it tries to hold that complexity. But it's ultimately
But we're
really
so addicted
difficult.
to the theater apparatus.
We are
thinking like the theater apparatus is also its own choreography with its own conditions, and so like the movement might not be set, but the lighting, the relationship to the audience, the spatial configuration, all that stuff is set, and that produces like its own very specific set of
and this is fun
parameters.
because I'm coming from the pedagogy department, so like my lens is like set choreography as a method for teaching dance. Of course it makes complete sense, like it's a very easy way to get people to a certain quality or vocabulary or codification around the body. And then in relation to that, then improvisation is like a very like complex thing where you're having to use those codes in order to express yourself. So you need to have a really deep knowledge of what that codification is. However, yeah, of course there are choreographies everywhere and they're sort of like influencing us.
I guess I'm not sure if I want to emancipate choreography or dancing, you know, and I think like, and it's a little bit, where is my, which one am I committing to? And in a way I think I felt for many years a more maybe declining commitment to the art form, the theater system situation, and then and I think it's also, definitely probably also in relationship to education, in thinking that the capture on an education like this with the output, the instrumental, the goal is to produce professional dancers. It's also just a narrow idea of what learning in dance can give you. I'm thinking like, to get a job with a company like Kohlberg is absolutely one outcome, and I also contradict myself again, because of course 25 years ago when I did a BA, that would have been my biggest dream. I didn't know who they were then, but whatever. Then this thing though that like for me, like, and I totally repeat myself, this is like my mantra, but like to be able to have had this intimate knowledge of bodies, proximity, texture, sensation, spatial awareness, politics, all this stuff that happens in these 3 years, and use it, for example, when you become a physiotherapist, or you work in elder care, or you're a fritidspedagog, or you're a dramaturg, or you're a literature critic, or you go on to become a cook. I think that those 3 years, that is making you a richer human and coexister in the world.
Yeah.
And I think, especially in relation to dancing, maybe choreography, where it's more codified and it has different, what's the word? Like a different demand on it. But like dancing, it's like, oh my goodness, we complain that nobody's interested in, just like look anywhere around. These people are dancing all over the place for in large situations with many other people either watching or dancing together with them. It is like not a marginal little sport, little dancing. No, it's not something, nobody cares about it.
And they actually often have quite a broad perspective on dance. Like I was working this weekend at Dansplats Skog with a group from the community, and there's a real sense like they're not considering dance as this alienated thing that's only for the stage and that it's really distant. When you give them the space to really think around what dance could be, it is social. It is folk-like. It is therapeutic. It is like clubbing. You know, like it has this breadth, and it's all the same thing for them as well. Whereas for us, there's this continuous struggle. Like, I'm always pushed towards production and stage when I recognize that dance is this phenomena that we're all participating to. And I love that you bring it up as well. Like having had life in my dance, having had dance in my life has really, I'm so privileged, I think. Like it's such a privilege to have this space where I can be creative with my experience, be it physical or perceptive experience. Like it's huge. Yeah.
No, I think we're still very much being too in service or too loyal to a kind of aesthetic regime idea from that we have with us from modernity. I think this kind of it's heartbreaking to imagine that there are so other possibilities to imagine, to dream with, and the professionalization, the legitimatization, you know, all this stuff. I get it. But I would wish that maybe we could be more self-critical to thinking about what the aesthetics of this choreography making, what they're maybe not always consciously reproducing, which ideologies of And then there's all sorts of people that are really writing really interesting about that.
Yeah,
and
of
I've
course.
been lately very inspired by decolonial thinking and like aesthetics and modernity, and then like there's this Rolando Vasquez person that talks about aesthetics and aesthesis, and the aesthesis is like seems to be some sort of reclaiming of the term that relates more to the senses, and that we all have that possibility, and modernity and was this making invisible erasure of a certain category of human in a certain geography, erasure, goodbye. So not allowed to enter into this aesthetic regime.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just reading a text about Sapmi dance just yesterday, and the prominence of erasure is like it's absolutely terrifying. There's a really nice book by Catherine Malibu to do with the erasure of pleasure, and she's speaking about in terms of femininity, but it's a broader concept of how the clitoris has been erased from history as like as an existing thing, and then how pleasure is also erased. But there's such a fight around the body. The body is always a sort of central axis inside of politics, like be it for war, the body is used, and so on.
Yeah, which in a way maybe is a relief also to just be able to use it and what it can do in a 6x10 dance carpet Marley situation with the audience right there. You know, like I'm also thinking the kind of specificity, containment, also the attention of that situation is also such a beautiful opportunity.
Yes.
You know,
I mean,
like,
that's why you have Radio 3,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I guess
In a
so.
way.
Yeah.
And that's why you have that desire perhaps to, let's just repeat it, let's just keep going.
Yeah, exactly, because that situation that happens, and I must admit that primarily performing in North America, or Turtle Island, is so meaningful. But all of the like ransacking and in order to get there is just like...
And I think that's why, like, sometimes the arguments from dance is dance great, more dance, right? Like, if I really oversimplify it. And I agree. Like, as someone who's had dance in my life, I want that more people have the possibility, if they wish, to be with dance. However, there's also a need to be critical within the dancing itself. And I really feel like that's what you're providing. Maybe this can be a closing note as well. That by asking us to be just dancing, you are firstly providing a space which is caring and kind and supportive for us to actually dance or to be dancing. And at the same time, we are able to be in conversation, like have it as a thinking practice. It's not just dancing, it's just dancing which is non-instrumentalized. And that really speaks to your work as an educator and as a choreographer and as a person and just as an activist in a way. So I'm really grateful.
Thank you.
Was that a good wrap up?
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you, Peter. What a total delight. I can't believe it took us this many years to do this.
There'll be more opportunities, I hope.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to add? And if maybe people want to get in touch with you?
Oh, touch.
Yeah.
Really.
I mean, obviously the university website I can link in the description.
Let's let me be just me for a second.
Oh, sorry.
The SKH. No.
Yeah.
I just think maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's good for me. I don't know. But
maybe there's prospect students who would love to join and see your amazing work firsthand.
Whatever. Yeah. I mean, there we go. If anyone can think of a better Instagram name for me, then they can take those. I'm Zozo. Thank you, Jessica Watson Galbraith, 100 years ago, who gave me that. It's totally impossible. And
your Instagram is great. You do keep us up to date with what you're busy with, both thinking and also professionally. But because you don't have a website, right?
I think I do, but I don't think it works.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't.
This is often a thing. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you. Oh, whoa.
Perfect.
Holy cow. That was insane. There's a timer went off at the exact same time that those 4 songs or 5 songs.